Welcome to the Angel Empowerment Healing Show with your hosts, Cindy Smith and Sam Bell. Join them every week as they share powerful tools, advice, and angel messages that will empower you to own your wellness.
Welcome, everyone, to the Angel Empowerment Healing Show with myself, Cindy Smith.
And with me, Sam Bell. And Cindy, after our last podcast, we promised our listeners that we would be talking about our new program, Vital Balance, and why we're advocating that anybody who wants to bring about any change in their life needs to do this online course, right?
Yes, it's all about we're getting to the core basics of our nervous system and balance. And so let's start just to have an understanding of, you can talk the fancy. So I'll let you talk about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And then I'm going to give some examples of how to get out of the fight or flight. So you talk about our nervous system, Sam. Take it over.
Oh, my word. Yeah. Okay. So here is geeky Sam talking the fancy. You've never told me that I talk the fancy before, Cindy.
Well, to me, okay, should have I said the medical, but it's, talk the fancy.
Okay. Talking the fancy. Okay. So very often, when somebody mentions the nervous system, we think about our brain and our spinal cord, and we know that there are nerves that go to the rest of our body. This is very much the nervous system that we're familiar with, and that is called the central nervous system. We also have the peripheral nervous system, which is those nerves that that feel, the sense of touch, and that. But there's another part of that peripheral nervous system called the autonomic. And think of that word auto. Basically, the autonomic nervous system is one half of our peripheral nervous system. But the autonomic nervous system, it works on auto. We don't have to tell it to do what it needs to do. It's so beautiful, it does it for us, right? So if we're falling asleep and we don't have to say, hey, nervous system, keep my heart beating all night, make sure that I'm breathing properly all night. Oh, help me digest that dinner that I've just eaten and release all of those digestive juices that are needed to digest all of my food, and tell my intestines to absorb all the nutrients that it needs. We don't need to tell it to do that. It does that for us. So one thing we can get into the practice of doing is just say thank you to your autonomic nervous system. And then the other thing is we're going to pour a little bit of joy and love on one part of that autonomic nervous system, which is the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And there's a lot of talk out there. People talk about, our vagal nerve and how we're going to do some healing for our vagus nerve and why it's so important. Well, we've been doing this all along, Cindy. Right from the beginning of Angel Empowerment Healing, we realized that we need to look after our nervous system, and it's so important for our overall healing. But we've actually taken that a step further, and we're really focusing on the parasympathetic nervous system, and its job is to keep us in the calm. And the sympathetic nervous system, its job is to help us get ready to fight or flight, to fight that big grizzly monster that we have there when we're frightened, or run the heck away from it. And it does all of these things to prepare our body. If you're feeling fear, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about fear, Cindy, but if you're thinking about fear, you find your heart is beating a little bit faster. Did you tell your heart to beat faster? No, it's just doing that for you. It's pumping that blood around that body, getting you ready to run like heck or to fight. Hit up those fists, and you need all that strength Adrenaline. We need that adrenaline to make us stronger, to make us feel like we can face whatever we need to in the face, or we can run the heck away. All right. So that is the sympathetic nervous system. And what we're realizing is that we're living very much in the sympathetic nervous system. It's become so familiar to our nervous system. It's so easy to kick it in, right? Because we're always stressed. We're always on the run. We're always dealing with something, juggling things. So our nervous system has basically learned to accept that, the sympathetic is the safe place to be, rather than being in our parasympathetic nervous system, which is when we're calm. And we realize that when we're in our calm and in our sympathetic, that's when the best healing happens. Why do you think that we try to get people feeling calm and relaxed? And we touched on that therapeutic relationship, Cindy. That is when the best healing happens. That's when we listen. That's when we take in the information. And the parasympathetic is also called rest and digest. It's where, for a reason, that is when our body starts to heal itself, when it's in that parasympathetic. So vital balance is basically shifting the balance from that fight or flight in our sympathetic and bringing it back into the calm of our parasympathetic. Right? Is that fancy enough?
That's fancy enough, Sam. So I've been teaching since I was taught it back in 2000, but I've been teaching what the Hawaiians with the ancient teachings of Huna, they refer to the learning state, and they call it the hakalau. Now, hakalau means basically you're going into your peripheral. So when we think of our peripheral and lining up with the nervous system in the way that rest and digest, your peripheral state is actually automatically doing that for you. So if you want to think of it in the most simplest terms, as you're listening to this podcast, we're going to give you just a moment here, and we'll, we're going to actually have silent airtime while you're doing this, okay? But take the moment, whether you're listening to the podcast as you're walking or driving or you're sitting, but just take the moment right now to think of something that causes you fear and pay attention to your physical body. Now let's get you out of that fear energy state very quickly. The easiest way is, I call it, push your vision into your peripheral. So think peripheral as expansion. So no longer are you in the tunnel of fear where you're seeing direct ahead of you. Now push your vision out. You can still be, so here's a great way to practice. Still look forward, but pay attention, put your hands up, and you're looking forward, but wiggle your fingers off to the side and still look forward, but see your fingers without moving your eyes. That pushes you into your peripheral, which brings you right back into the calm state. It's out of the tunnel. Okay? It is out of the tunnel. It's telling your nervous system that you are in your calm state again. Unfortunately, we tend to be more into our tunnel vision, and we've learned to be in that stress mode, just as Sam referred to. But you can, throughout the day, do really simple tools to throw yourself, not throw yourself, but that's probably not the best, but to make sure you are in your peripheral state, your calm and digest state. Now, in the Vital Balance, we go into detail. We go into detail about how the three minds work, from the Huna teachings, I go in much more detail how to practice to get into your learning state. We have all kinds of different techniques that Sam and I share within the Vital Balance. And it's really teaching you to, on moment to moment. So let's think of driving, okay? It's best if we're in our peripheral when we're driving, instead of zoning out and just paying attention to the fact that you're on the road. If you're in your peripheral, you're going to see more, and you're going to be aware more, and you're going to keep out of that any kind of stress state when you're driving. So all of our listeners that get uptight when they get behind the wheel, I'm telling you, one of the easiest thing to bring more calmness is to be in the peripheral when you're driving. I also, let's take it to the next step. I always ask Archangel Michael to surround my vehicle in white light and protection, and keep wildlife off the road, and keep everybody else in the right lane. I'm still paying attention. It's just that I can push myself into the peripheral state. But now that I'm talking about this, here's the thing. I can remember a time, I think it was last year, I got stuck on one of our main roads here in Calgary because a hailstorm came in, and everybody had to pull off because it was a huge, wind blowing and moving the van. And I knew I was protected, but I now realize that I didn't put myself into the calm state. I was in the fear base, even though because I kept saying throughout the whole time, "You got this, right, Michael? You got me protected, right, Michael?" Like, Sam, you could hear me. Like, I didn't quit. "You got this, right, Michael?" The only way that brought me any calm was to talk directly to Michael that my van was, because the wind was blowing so bad, I thought the van was going to go on its side. So I didn't push the energy into the peripheral. I can think of it now. That was the furthest from my mind because I was in the fear. So we can have the big fear, and we can have little things, and we can have unwanted negative emotions that cause us to go into the tunnel. We can be stressed because we're unable to get everything that needs to be done in one day that puts us into the tunnel. Like, there's so many things that gets us out of our resting state with our nervous system. Mm-hmm. And that's why Sam and I are so eager to share as much as we can around the Vital Balance program and the nervous system program, because these are easy tools that you can all use. Right, Sam?
Oh, absolutely. And, I just got to laugh because obviously you guys can't see us, but we can see each other because we're recording these podcasts on Zoom for you. And as Cindy is talking and doing the peripheral, I've started to yawn. And yawning, we don't tell our body to yawn. It just happens. And when we do an exercise that takes us into our peripheral vision, thinking about that parasympathetic nervous system, we don't have to tell it to do these things. It will start to yawn, or you'll find that you will be swallowing, or it's just that you're in your parasympathetic, and it's stimulating, and it's getting you into that rest and digest state. And as I say, I'm listening to you, Cindy, and I'm in my peripheral. I can feel this calm. And I started to yawn, and my eyes are watering, and I'm like, oh, that's my parasympathetic nervous system kicking in. I'm stimulating it to do these things without me telling it to do it, right? It's just so beautiful. But I love that exercise and that idea of that tunnel vision, because when we're fearful, we do get that tunnel vision. When we're frightened, that's all we want to do. We focus on just that fear, and so many times, when we think about our health, we focus on what's going wrong with our health. And then we don't even think about, expanding our vision to look at how everything else is working well, and start to feel gratitude and feel joy that we have this beautiful body that is behaving correctly and doing everything that it wants it to do. Instead, we're just focusing maybe on that pain. But we know that if we start to focus on something else, it'll take our attention away from that pain, and the pain will start to become less. So as you're talking there about that tunnel vision, we do that when we're unwell. I do it. I know I do it. I think just about the pain of a headache and a migraine, and I start to focus on it. And as I'm focusing on it, it gets worse. But if I can expand my vision, expand my focus to be thinking about all the good, and the headache becomes less. It's like when you read a book or you watch a movie or a friend comes over and you start to talk with them. That headache becomes less because we're expanding that focus of attention.
Yes. And it's more than just fear. So let's think of certain triggers that will put us into tunnel, whether we realize it or not. Frustration. Okay, that is, it's not a full-on fear-based, but it's frustration, anger, the unwanted negative emotions. And I'm getting a message from Archangel Raphael right now. Frustration is definitely one of those things that puts us into fight or flight. And we're realizing that we haven't even done it on purpose. Like our listeners, take the time to think throughout the day certain things that you get frustrated with. There's so many different that can activate that frustration, which puts you into a tunnel vision. And all we have to do is take the time to say, okay, I need to be back in the now. I need to get myself grounded to the now, and I need to open my state. I need to pay attention to the peripheral, get back into my calm state, know that I got this handled. There's so many things that we can do to assist our physical body to know we are in that calm state. Because really, unless we are actively paying attention throughout our day, we are running on that autopilot and can easily start our body thinking that it needs to give us more oomph, more adrenaline, more cortisol, more the hormones that are running our body, yet there's no need for it. And that's why Sam refers to the thermostat. And I love your analogy of the thermostat, but again, quickly give them the analogy of the thermostat, but we go so much into this in the Vital Balance program.
Well, one of the things you said there, Cindy, is about we go on autopilot. And, that is exactly what our autonomic nervous system is about. Autonomic, autopilot. It's doing it without us telling it to do that. But unfortunately, our body, our nervous system more specifically, will choose its safest place. And for our nervous system, very often it chooses the safest place that it's the most familiar with. And the place that it tends to be more familiar with is that state of stress, that state of fight or flight. So the thermostat will automatically, on autopilot, go into that fight or flight, all right? Going into that sympathetic nervous system. What if we were able to move that thermostat? And auto, for us, would mean that we would go to the parasympathetic nervous system. So autopilot for us would be going to calm and rest and digest. And that is the place that our nervous system recognizes as the place that it feels safe, the place that it feels that it needs to go to whenever, we need it to. What if that was our everyday? Instead of going on to auto, into our sympathetic and getting into that fight or flight, what if we said to it, we need you to go to your safest place, which is feeling restful, feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling content. That's when the Hawaiian philosophy has told us that the best healing happens, where the best learning happens. You know, I mean, why do we think that we need to get people before they sit an exam to start to feel, you know, calm and safe and content so that they can think more clearly? Actually, it's expanding the way that they think, getting people into their peripheral, getting students into their peripheral vision before they sit an exam or they perform on stage or they do a driving test. You know, this is something that Vital Balance teaches you to use in your everyday life. And it's so simple. We've just got 3 modules online, right, Cindy?
Yes.
And it's all there for you. It depends on what kind of a learner you are. We have video there so you can see and you can listen. So there's visuals there. We also have some downloadable things there that you can print off so that you can look at them to remind you. But we also have the written as well. So there's reading for you if you find that when you're reading the written word, that is the way that you learn. Just 3 modules. And then anybody that signs up actually gets access for 6 months to myself and Cindy. And in the second module, we have, in the first module, I get all fancy. I tell you the fancy stuff, right? So we talk about the nervous system, and Cindy talks about the 3 minds and the huna. And then in the second module, we unveil all these tools for you. And we actually show you how to practice those tools. And then in the third module, you actually have a recording that you can download, which is actually the language from Angel Empowerment Healing to calm your nervous system. And Cindy has recorded that so you can put it onto your laptop or you can put it onto your phone. You can put your earbuds in and listen to that at any time. And then the 6 months, we go live with you on a Wednesday evening or a Wednesday lunchtime to practice some of those tools. And so the whole idea is that by the end of Vital Balance, you'll be using these in a part of your everyday life. And the benefits are phenomenal. And the science proves that they're phenomenal. Better health.
And you can sign up at any time. So once you sign up, you get 6 months to access the live calls with Sam and I. And she means 1 time a month. So so stop thinking that it's every Wednesday. It's 1 time a month. You get live calls with us to ask us questions, any advice that we can give to help. And we're just happy with the program because we know the extent that it will help people. And please know that there is, if you practice yoga, if you practice a lot of meditation, if you practice certain modalities out there that put you in the calm state, of course, you're going to keep practicing those. But it's the times, if you make sure you're remembering when you do go into that tunnel, what do you do to get out of it? I mean, unless, you've created great practices to do it. We're just asking you to become aware of what you are experiencing throughout your day in your physical body. Where is your thermostat? So how do they sign up for the Vital Balance?
Simply go to our website, angelempowermenthealing.com/vital-balance. And there's a beautiful page there that explains more about our program for you, and you can register there.
Beautiful. Well, once again, we love and we enjoy sharing our topics with everybody. And Sam just said, how about we pull a card for the next? We always like to give a test. Shall I pull one? I'll pull one. What would Archangel Raphael like us to talk about in our next podcast? And it is mindful healing. So this is interesting because we've had that one come up a few times. So there's more that he would like to talk about for mindful healing. So we will work on that. Well, you can tell I just hesitated because I'm already getting downloads. So
Okay.
okay. So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Cindy Smith.
And my name is Sam Bell, and we will see you next time on the Angel Empowerment Healing Show.
Thank you for joining us on the Angel Empowerment Healing Show. Your hosts, Cindy Smith and Sam Bell, will be back next week with more tools, advice, and angel messages to empower you to own your wellness. Visit our podcast page at www.angelempowermenthealing.com/podcast, where you will receive 3 healing meditations recorded as a thank you for being one of our listeners.